So we need to put the requisite All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to round 3, I guess, for this City of Akron's operating budget hearings. We have another full schedule today. Again, my reminder to the council members to, when it comes to questions, to keep it pertaining to the budget instead of, more or less a program-related question. We can always entertain those at different committee meetings throughout the month. So again, full schedule, and we are going to start off with the Office of Integrated Development, I believe. So Mr. Mike Wheeler, you can take it from there and then do the introductions.
So thank you. As we start our third and final day today, we have here with us the Office of Integrated Development, Economic Development, led by Susie Graham Moore and Sean Villman. For reference, the numbers that reference the budget begin on page 162, and in the goals and objectives document, it begins on page 32. I'll hand it off to them.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Somerville, Chairman Lombardo, and Vice Chair Mobian, as well as members of committee and council. The Office of Economic Development complements planning department initiatives within the Office of Integrated Development, and the activities of economic development are largely people-powered and certainly a team effort across business retention, expansion, and attraction, development engineering, development services, and downtown operations, which includes the operation and management of Lock 3. Our focus is fostering economic growth and opportunity, retaining, expanding, and attracting businesses, and expanding our tax base, fostering entrepreneurship, strengthening neighborhood business districts, and improving the quality of life for Akron's residents. The Economic Development Team supports the spectrum of business, from micro-entrepreneurship to mature businesses, through a combination of city programming and capacity that is outsourced to a network of community partners who deliver programs and direct assistance to business owners. In 2026, we intend to connect individually with more than 250 businesses. The department is an active participant in Elevate Greater Akron, which is a cross-sector collaboration between local, regional, and state organizations to drive prosperity in Akron and the Greater Akron region, through which we intend to reach over 200 of those 250 anticipated businesses. In the year of 2025, the Elevate Greater Akron Collaborative reached 288 businesses, 102 of which were with MBE and WBE businesses, and closed 16 projects, bringing 263 new jobs to the region with $50 million in capital investment and $29.8 million in new payroll. In 2025, the department strengthened our tracking efforts with respect to site selection work, conducting 97 total site searches. We will continue to track and report on site search activity in 2026 as well. Our business retention, expansion, and attraction work also allows us to maximize staff and city resources to grow Akron's income tax base through the deployment of economic development grants and incentives to attract investment and grow jobs and opportunity in the city of Akron. These efforts are quantified through development agreements established in concert with council approval as they are created. In 2025, city resources contributed to leveraging approximately $4 million in investment and 250 jobs, as well as $10 million in new payroll into the city of Akron alone. 2026 is off to an excellent start with the attraction of Buckingham back to Akron and the growth of Millennium Capital, bringing an estimated 190 jobs into the city in our first 3 months of the year. We look forward to a strong year of BRE activity in the year ahead. Economic development shares city resources to maximize economic impacts across a series of partnerships with business assistance organizations and in partnership with business leaders. In 2026, we've budgeted $495,000 of support through small business assistance providers like the Akron Urban League, Summit Medina Business Association, Bounce Innovation Hub, the Greater Akron Chamber, and the Black Chamber of Summit County, among others. The city will also support the startup of the Highland Square Special Improvement District, multiplying city investment in concert with that of property owners to improve public safety and public space in Highland Square, as well as the second of 3 years of support to the Downtown Akron Development Corporation. In 2025, the Downtown Akron Development Corp. Launched a matching grant program to encourage downtown building improvements through a business development grant using part of a $1.5 million grant from Knight Foundation. In 2026, that grant has already supported 4 downtown businesses, leveraging $2.3 million in investment, and we look forward to a new year of additional grant programs in 2026. We appreciate Council's support of the zoning change, allowing for more dynamic signage in our downtown businesses, and look forward to that grant supporting additional signage in downtown as well. In 2026, we will continue downtown development work supporting stabilizing challenging downtown properties, combating commercial vacancy, and investing in residential reuse and hospitality to drive a thriving corridor that yields a significant portion of the city's income and bed tax within a 3-street district. We're thrilled to continue working on residential development at 123 Barges, the City Center, and the Akron Beacon Journal developments as we work towards a goal of 5,000 residents by 2030 in downtown, as well as continuing to work alongside the Quaker Redevelopment Group on the development of historic Quaker Square. 2026 economic development work also includes city support of the important renovation and Main Street reopening of the University of Akron's Polsky Building with a $1 million total commitment divided over a 4-year period. I would be remiss if I did not mention ongoing committed city investment in the polymer industry cluster. The City of Akron's pledge to invest $750,000 over 4 years has attracted not only our designation as the United States Sustainable Polymers Tech Hub and the State Polymer Innovation Hub, but also over $100 million in funding. In 2025, the launch of the Synthesix Accelerator at Bounce helped to usher in $1.9 million in research and development grants awarded across 13 innovation projects to advance biodegradable packaging, biomanufacturing, recycling, and advanced materials, positioning the region for future growth across multiple industry sectors in polymers. In 2026, we look forward to an announcement on our competitive position in the pursuit of National Science Foundation NSF Engine's funding for the region and the development of the $25 million polymer pilot facility on the campus of the University of Akron. In 2026, we also look forward to continuing to grow our partnerships within the small business ecosystem and continuing investment in our neighborhood business districts through the Great Streets program. In 2025, we announced the award of $165,000 in micro-enterprise business improvement grants and $229,785 in matching building improvement grants to make improvements to 14 properties and assist 40 entrepreneurs. In 2026, we will deploy and manage those awards, and anticipating the award of additional CDBG funds, design another round of support for Great Streets businesses. 2026 CDBG support for this program is reflected in planning's budget. In 2025, the Development Services and Engineering team supported the county application and receipt of $1.2 million in brownfield remediation funds and will support the 2026 effort to both inventory sites for remediation and deploy those funds. In 2025, matching city funds supported the demolition of the Kenmore Annex, the former Rankin and Goodrich school buildings. The 2026 budget reflects $500,000 of matching funds for anticipated demolition work, including the to-be-determined plans for 1200 Firestone. We are working with both Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission, as well as the State Historic Preservation Office in tandem with the Summit County Land Bank and Ohio Department of Development to reach consensus on a path forward, and will keep both council and the community apprised of those developments. The economic development budget also includes ongoing support of the early learning program led by Rochelle Wardell, education and health strategist. Quality childcare is a critical component in economic development as it supports the talented workforce who rely on it, as well as supporting entrepreneurship within the provider network and supporting the readiness of our future workforce. Finally, in 2025, with input from more than 3,000 community members, we are excited to have expanded our musical programming range in Lock 3 and raised $248,000 in philanthropic summer programming support, as well as hosting more than 200,000 visitors through the newly renovated Lock 3. In 2026, the Lock 3 team looks forward to an ambitious year, inviting more than 250,000 annual visitors to downtown through 110 events at Lock 3, including 13 national acts. We're grateful for the trust of council, allowing for sufficient budget in 2025 for us to test and learn from programming national acts. And based on that experience and learning, we feel confident in reducing our summer program budget by 34% through earned revenue sponsorships. We are also proud of our new entrepreneurial partnerships established with Evelyn's Coffee and Banh Mi, the Breakfast Box, and Millionaire Express in Lock 3 and the municipal building, respectively. Those partnerships not only provide opportunities for small businesses through city-owned spaces, but also help us to reduce staffing costs at Lock 3 by about $39,000. We've been thrilled with the positive response to the release of national acts booked to date and look forward to more good news on April 15th with the release of the full schedule at Lock 3. I'd like to take a moment to thank the members of the Economic Development Team for their efforts in 2025 and their optimism and passion for improving service delivery, initiatives, and programs in 2026. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. I have one question regarding the, you talked about Great Streets and the other grants for small businesses and the facade grants. So what page would I find that type of, expense for last year and then what we're planning on for 2026?
Sure.
Or is that, maybe I should wait for this for Sean?
No, that's great. If you look at page 168 of the budget book, the other, under other expenses, that is the grant funding that we do from JED. The CDB, the Great Streets program has traditionally been supported by CDBG, so that is not in this pack on our pages, but that's part of planning's allocation. So
Right, so the Great Streets are going to be on page 74. So there's one page, page 74 basically includes all of the contractual type things funded by CDBG. So there's a large, it's basically a $4.9 million number, and the Great Streets are included in that number. And the Great Street amount is $400,000 plus, I believe there's another 100,000 or so down in,
This is for 2026?
yeah, so it's 500,000 total. That is on page 74.
For 2026. And the facade grants? Or is, that includes?
that's included in that.
Includes? Okay. So, I mean, that's great what we're doing with Great Streets. Is there any other opportunities for businesses that are, I hear it all the time, and I'm sure other council members do too, that we're just 2 doors down from the,
Right.
from the line, so.
Yes,
Inter-
absolutely. So Great Streets has allowed us to make investments where we feel like we can multiply that investment because of a few things. One, in a Great Streets district, you have proximity to an adjacent business, which is going to allow for potential stronger sustainability of the businesses. You're also improving walkability, safety, and sociability. So that's why we make like a, if you want to think of it as a sort of a separate investment in the Great Streets or a yes and investment in Great Streets. However, the investment that I talked about with that about $495,000 that goes into business support assistance providers, that's where we are supporting all smaller businesses throughout the city of Akron. And it's a way that we can sort of multiply our capacity within economic development. We have a super team, but we have like a super, it's a small and mighty team. And this helps us also tap into the expertise of some of those assistance provider organizations like the Summit Medina Business Association, the Akron Urban League, the Greater Akron Chamber, and they also help to provide some direct support that goes to small businesses throughout the city of Akron.
So what's our number? We have like about 500,000 for Great Streets. What's our number for the other businesses?
Assistance providers, $495,000. So we try and keep
Same.
them all very similar.
Okay. And then when it comes to, we helped a lot of Main Street businesses here with, whether you're talking about COVID or, the other construction going on, things like that. So do we have any of that type of assistance for the other part of Main Street that's happening right now?
COVID assistance?
No, not necessarily COVID. That was just an example how we help businesses in downtown.
I see.
But now that we have Main Street going on to the north of us, do we have anything budgeted for those businesses?
We do not have a direct budget created to support the businesses in the North Main Street project.
And some of it is great streets, so.
Yeah.
Correct.
You know.
So there's some overlap there, but it's not specifically construction related. I do believe that without the impacts of COVID, it's not quite as similar. I mean, it's a similar circumstance, and I certainly take very seriously the impact of construction on any business. And it's a slightly different circumstance. I believe that we did get some COVID support to be able to deploy those grants on Main Street as well.
That was the CARES Act, I think, was that the first one? There's ARPA. What was before ARPA? CARES, I think that, and that was when I was moving over from the law department at that time, but I think that those direct assistance payments to the businesses on North Main were from the CARES funding.
Okay, thank you. I'm going here to Councilwoman Linda Mobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Talk to me about Lock 3, because I remember talking with you after I attended one concert. I felt I was in New York or some big city somewhere. It was just really nice to be there, and just the atmosphere was fantastic. Talk to me about how that's reflected in the numbers. Where would I find that? What are we,
On what page?
how are we capturing what we're doing with that on Lock 3?
So the budget page is 170 for Lock 3's budget. I don't, for those of you who remember, we came to council last year and we asked for an unusually high budget to allow us to, if it's fair to say, experiment in bringing in some of those national acts and essentially test if we would be able to host audiences like that in Lock 3. And I'm happy to say that with Chris Griffith's leadership, who's the downtown operations manager, we were able to successfully host some amazing events at Lock 3 last year. We also learned that we were able to do some fundraising to offset that and be able to test a revenue model and work with the Akron Civic Theater to line up a new lineup of talent for 2026. We feel confident in being able to reduce that budget that we asked for last year significantly, and we feel that we'll be able to manage similar experiences, although we are investing in line management. For those of you who attended some of those bigger shows, we're trying to figure out how we can get folks into the door in a smoother operation, a faster moving line, and more coordinated security efforts. But to be able to execute similar experience with a slightly reduced budget.
Can you tell me, Mr. Fricker, what am I looking at in terms of revenue generated?
So what has happened is that we don't really have as much revenue generation from the concerts itself, because the Civic is kind of putting this together, and they've actually had, as Susie said, they've had some sponsorship money that has reduced our costs for those concerts. So we still do get some revenues from like the skate rentals and some of that type of activity down for like the Winterfest. But the concerts they're managed by the Civic.
So the 250 that you're anticipating for 2026 includes all the activities that are going on down there?
250
in terms of the.
Oh, 250,000 people?
Yeah,
Yes.
what did I say, 256?
Yeah, no, you've got it, absolutely. I wasn't sure if we were talking dollars or people.
No, no.
Yes.
The people.
Yes.
And, the ticket amount, I know we want to keep it at a nominal rate so that we can bring in folks from all walks of life downtown. What are we charging, like $10, $15, $20? How much is it?
I'm going to let.
So it differs depending on the act. So
Right.
our national acts, for example, we're able to sell reserved seating as well as the lawn. And so in those efforts, hosting those very large acts, the ones that were just released, the cost of doing that is significant. And so that is offset both by some of those sponsorships, but then also the ticketed cost as well, which can range, I think reserved seating starts around 75 per ticket, can go to like about 40 in the lawn. And then for some of the other concerts, it's absolutely free. So we're trying to provide a range of different experiences to meet the needs and desires of all of Akron.
So we're hoping that it will break even in terms of we're not spending a whole lot of money on it. We're creating opportunities for citizens to come down.
Correct. We're kind of paying the Civic on a net basis, so basically, right, so it's before, some of the revenue is coming in directly to the city, and then the Civic had a cost for whatever they were doing. Now, you know, they're collecting the revenue, but that kind of offsets what we have to pay them, you know.
Thank you.
I had another question, I can't think of it
All
now.
right.
Go ahead.
Any other questions? You do? Councilman Fusco.
Thank you. Excuse me, back to page 170, I reckon. And perhaps you explained some of that, but what we're seeing is 2.2 was budgeted last year, 1.3 was spent under service contracts, that I assume that's for the acts, I'm guessing, perhaps, but now we're coming in at 1.8. So I'm just curious, a little bit more detail on that, I guess?
Sure. As far as service contracts, so that is the contract with the Civic that manages the talent. So the talent is part of that. So is our partnership with Rubber City Radio. So marketing is part of that. Security is part of that. Our contract with Woodsies is also part of that. So all of those things are built into that number. And this, yes, we just feel like we can reduce the overall amount. We do want to make sure that there's enough in the budget for us to be able to host the shows. Every year, we're asking for a little bit of wiggle room with that budget, but we feel like we don't need quite as much wiggle room as we asked for last year.
Okay. Interesting. And I have a slew of questions, but I'll just ask one more. On page 166, excuse me, the debt service, 2.1 on debt service, on page 166.
Yep.
Don't know what is that for all the improvements
Yes,
over there?
so that is the debt service on basically our HUD bonds. And this year's a little bit unusual in that there is a bond on the Bowery development that had a balloon payment that is coming due this year. Now, that is all paid by the developer. That's why there's a large increase in that debt service amount.
And so that'll satisfy that?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, cool. Good, thank you.
Councilman Graham Wilson.
Thank you. Educate me. Are tax abatements for corporations, is that handled through your department?
Like a tax increment financing, I think, is oftentimes the way that we materialize a tax abatement. Yes, so those are oftentimes negotiated through the development agreement that we would create with either an existing business that might be doing a significant improvement to a property that they own, or an incoming business that is doing the same.
Okay. I think I'm interested in, maybe this is outside of, but I'm interested in knowing like the total amount abated for corporations in Akron. I don't know if that exists anywhere, but I imagine that's convoluted, but we don't have any numbers around that. Right?
Yeah, and I think the word abate is not 100% accurate. What it is, and what we're referring to is the TIF. So the corporations are paying that property tax. It's just that in some of our agreements, a portion of those proceeds is being returned back to them. I think that's what you're referring to.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry. Just
Oh,
one
I'm
quick
sorry, I didn't hear
question.
you.
Thank
See
you.
you. Go ahead, Council.
Who currently runs the Great Streets program?
It's an excellent question. So we were able to bring in 2 new economic development specialists. Kirk Gardner is the first, who just recently joined us about 45 days ago. And then Kendra Arnold just started on March 9th. And so we have 2 new staff people in the Department of Economic Development, and they, in tandem, are working to reach out to the Great Streets and make connections with those businesses. I believe they're starting next week in Kenmore, because Candor has just come on, and starting to make their way through the Great Streets businesses to introduce themselves and share their contact information and start rebuilding relationships that have struggled, I think, over the last year as we had some transitions in our staff positions.
Perfect. And it might be a good idea to have those 2 individuals come before council, just so, council has an opportunity to meet them and, talk about their strategies moving forward.
We would love to do that. Thank you.
I didn't get the second name. I know Kurt. I didn't get the second person.
Oh, Kendra Arnold.
Kendra Arnold. Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Tina Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along the same lines, I noticed that there's a net increase of 1 employee in the department, but we currently haven't filled the development manager position, and it is budgeted for. How are we looking on that?
In the filling the development manager?
Yeah.
So we've not yet posted that position. One of the things that we're doing across the Office of Integrated Development is trying to figure out how are people's requests routed through both planning and economic development, where they crisscross, and then the appropriate places to have staffing in each. So development service is probably the most shared department across both of those 2, planning and economic development. So we're really trying to map out where and when we need that management capacity, and then waiting to determine where that should go. But we believe that we need that position. We're just trying to understand where it should go.
I see. So we're not sure if it will reside in your department, or it will, but we're trying to figure out the cross-functioning.
It will, we're figuring out the cross-functioning.
One last question from Councilman Fusco.
Yeah, thanks. And I don't know if this is necessarily your answer. Maybe more of a function of the finance, but on page 33, what we're seeing is the number of tax returns filed in Akron, and it's been dipping a bit, and curious about that. It went, in 23 is 52,000, 24 is 47,000, and in 25 it was 44,000. So the number of tax returns filed is dipping. Just curious why that is. And is that a national trend or something, Ohio trend? I don't know. Just curious.
Just to page 33, Mr.
Yeah.
33, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so finance did not actually provide these numbers, so I would like to investigate.
Okay, yeah,
what
that's
these
cool.
are.
You get back to us. No.
Because does that mean I file an Akron tax return, those filings that we're receiving?
Yeah, and, so there's individual tax returns, and then there's corporate tax returns. I'm assuming that is related to the corporate ones.
Yeah.
I don't believe that the number would be that.
Residential?
No,
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah, it's on 33. Just
All
curious.
right. Okay, thank you very much, Susie, for
you.
your department's work. Great job.
Thanks so much.
And now we have the Office of Integrated Development for Planning with Mr. Sean Volman.
No,
Oh.
that would not be Mr. Sean.
Oh, okay.
We'll have Mr.
that.
Kyle Julian, I'm
Aye.
assuming.
All right, you could stay, though.
So as we transition, we welcome Kyle Julian, the Director of Planning. And the budget book numbers begin on page 67, and the goals and objectives, it begins on page 34.
Good afternoon, President Somerville, Chair Lombardo, members of council. I am not Sean Bowman. But I do thank you for the opportunity to discuss the work of the Department of Planning and Urban Development. The Planning Department comprises 3 divisions: Akron Metropolitan Area Traffic Study, or AMATS, the Long Range Planning Division, and the Zoning Division. AMATS is the metropolitan planning organization for Summit County and Portage County and a small piece of Wayne County, and it's housed here at the city of Akron. Curtis Baker is the director there, and Matt Stewart, the Transportation Planning Administrator, is here with us today. AMATS ensures that the Akron area has a continuing, cooperative, and comprehensive transportation planning process that is necessary to receive federal funds for transportation infrastructure projects in the region. The Long Range Planning Division, headed by Helen Tomick, is responsible for neighborhood and area planning processes, designing, budgeting, administering, and monitoring programs funded through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and managing the capital investment program. And then the Zoning Division, led by our brand-new zoning manager, Jim Hosbach, administers the city zoning code and the subdivision of land within the city, and it also serves as the offices of the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission. This year, AMATS will continue to execute key planning initiatives and programs that enable the region to receive funding for transportation infrastructure improvements. AMATS will continue to develop its long-range transportation plan for the region and update annual reports on crashes and traffic congestion, conditions of roadways, and other necessary studies. AMATS provides critical data and reports on traffic in the region, including reports on traffic volume, signal inventories, as well as other studies. AMATS will continue to manage a portfolio of projects receiving federal funds through the agency. This includes approximately 70 projects across the planning area, receiving $14 million in federal transportation funds and $6 million in state funds. Last year, the Planning Department worked on a number of key initiatives aimed at strengthening our city, making it more attractive for investment, and enhancing the quality of life for residents. These include completion of the Interbelt Master Plan, a long-range plan for reconnecting West Side neighborhoods to the city core, and creating opportunities for neighborhood revitalization, housing, and economic development, and healing and repair. The plan will be presented to the Planning Commission at its April meeting before bringing it here to Council for adoption. This year, we will be working on several implementation strategies from the plan, including updating the zoning for the areas around the Interbelt to align with the planning goals, beautification of the decommissioned portion of the highway, facilitating infill housing development on vacant land in the area, and laying the groundwork for additional decommissioning. Planning engaged with a number of developers to advance key projects in the city, resulting in legislation that was recently passed here, supporting investments in adaptive reuse projects downtown at 123 West Barges Street, and the Akron Beacon Journal building on Exchange, projects that will eliminate blight, provide both affordable and market rate housing downtown, and contribute to downtown's continued resurgence. The department invested in Wintergreen Ledges, which is nearing completion and will provide 120 units of affordable housing on Vernon Odom Boulevard, and with 20 of those units reserved for those experiencing or at risk of homelessness. We worked with a local developer to support acquisition improvements to an underperforming mid-sized apartment building in Northwest Akron, facilitating reinvestment to address deferred maintenance and retain affordable housing in that neighborhood. And from that experience, we're working with some other community partners to establish an ongoing program to support reinvestment in our existing housing stock. And there is an opportunity there to leverage our federal funding with outside sources to increase the impact in this area. And we're also working on programs to bring homeownership within reach of more people in the city. This work supporting neighborhood revitalization and affordable housing is funded through our annual allocation of funds through the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. And we're awaiting notification of our allocation for 2026, on the edge of our seats, really. And we should know in the next month where we sit. Indications so far are that we should receive funding at a similar level to 2025. Once we receive that notification, final notification, we will then engage with community members and service providers to assess community needs and then update our annual action plan, which defines how those HUD funds can be spent. And of course, that update is brought here to Council for approval. Last year, we collaborated with the Summit County Land Bank to issue an RFP for architectural services so that we could procure high-quality plans for a variety of housing types that would be available for use in the city for free. An Akron firm, Grassroots Architecture, was selected for this project, and we're very excited about the evolving plans. And we're working now to engage with builders to identify changes that can reduce building costs, some savings that we want to introduce into the plan so that we can ensure that these support the building of starter homes in the city. The plans will be released for use in late spring, and they will reduce costs and speed approvals for small builders, nonprofit organizations, and individuals looking to build homes on vacant lots throughout the city. The zoning division brought key updates to the zoning code to council for approval. Those include creating a licensing process and spacing requirements for smoke shops. To date, we've issued 19 licenses across the city. 5 businesses were denied licenses, and 14 have not responded to notifications or completed the process, and we're working through the enforcement processes on those. The signage regulations for downtown were also updated using the form-based code, which is simpler and more transparent to use and encourages business signs that are more appropriate for a downtown environment. Planning staff devotes a considerable amount of its time with developers and property owners, reviewing proposals, helping them bring those proposals into compliance with the zoning code, and facilitating development that is functional and economical and that contributes to the city's built environment. Our work there isn't always evident, but I'll point to 2 prominent examples where planning worked hard with developers to improve site plans to ensure the best outcomes for the neighborhood, and those include the gas station at Eastland and Britton Road, as well as the Amazon Distribution Center on Manchester Road. And that project, they should have crews out there any day. So that's exciting. In 2026, planning will also begin a badly needed update to the Land Use and Development Guide Plan, the document that establishes our land use priorities. You always hear us refer to the Land Use and Development Guide Plan during our public hearings as the basis for our recommendations. It was last updated in 1987. Clearly, our needs and opportunities have changed in the last 40 years, and how we approach land use needs to change as well. Creating a new comprehensive plan and bringing the form-based code to more neighborhoods also align with legislation being worked on in Washington and in Columbus, encouraging cities to address barriers to housing production. And we want to be ready. Finally, the mayor and council have both committed to the Unify Akron Civic Dialogue around solutions to Akron's housing issues. The planning department has been providing support to that effort, and will continue to do so as that civic assembly works to identify solutions. And we will be involved in translating recommended strategies into legislation, policies, and programs as appropriate. We know that the early proposals being considered include changes to the zoning code as well as financing mechanisms. So those are things that we will be working on, right? I hope I've given a picture of the work that we do, where we're trying to go in 2026, and I'll just close by saying that I'm very proud of the staff that works with us on the 4th floor, and they're hardworking folks, and we hope that you recognize that, and that we continue to provide good service for the city and for council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Julian. Do we have any questions for Kyle?
Or for sure.
Councilman Wilson.
Thank you for your presentation. I am on the goals document on page 35. Just had 2 questions on that. The first one is under if it's okay to talk about the zoning. The number of violations investigated has hopped up significantly from 2024 to 2025. And then my second question was around the estimated for 2026 at the top table here under department-wide federal and state grant reimbursements, and then also the department expenditures. Those 2 hop up significantly since 2025 and 2024. I don't know if you could broadly give some overview on that.
So the reimbursements and the expenditures, are a measure of mostly HUD dollars that we are kind of passing through to our community partners or through community programs and things like that. And so there's an ebb and a flow to that work based on when we're able to get projects to the sort of the finish line of being able to issue a contract, and how long that project might be, and when we can anticipate draws, right? So we just brought legislation on 2 major projects, for example, right? And we anticipate that most of that money is going to come out in 2026. So there's some ebb and flow in how those funds get distributed. We try and move them as quickly as we can, but, some of these big projects are complex, and, we're oftentimes waiting for other pieces of the capital stack to get finalized and so on.
And then, thank you. And then the zoning, we've seen a hop up in the zoning violations investigated. I don't know if you have any additional context about why that might be happening.
I am not sure of the nature of, of the violations that we're investigating that would, drive that 70 more investigations. And I think it could just be that we're able to react a little bit better, and so we're getting out there and responding, better. I'm going to claim that response. I'm just going to pause for a moment and ask Jim, where are you? Do you have any thoughts on why that number popped? It could also be that we've just got more scofflaws in the city right now.
I couldn't hear,
Okay.
I didn't hear that comment. It wasn't for us to hear, okay.
All right. Councilman Fusco? Oh, do you have a question?
No, I
No.
don't, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can answer part of that, I think, from last year. Whenever we were in these chambers doing what we're doing today, we asked for more enforcement. I'm glad to see that, appreciate it, because I think that's something that we can improve on, perhaps, zoning enforcement. And my question is going to be not for an answer today, but what were the outcomes of the 402 investigations? How many were brought into compliance? How many were, and I know that may take some time to figure out how many were fined, how many went to court, all that.
Actually, we have that, it just didn't make it into this document, so,
Okay.
that was collected last month, so, for last year, so we can get that.
That would be great to see how many are still open and so on and so forth. But I'm happy to see that increase. That's a good thing. I also am curious about page 72 in the budget book, where we had spent like 622 and 25. This is the OID, Long Range Planning CIP fund, and we're budgeting 62.9.
Page 72 you're referring to?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So
The
that
budget for the
is-
service contracts.
That is the Sasaki planning grant that we had. So the majority of that was spent last year, and the $26,900 is what's remaining on that.
What do we get for our 662 or 622?
That I'm going to,
Sasaki.
That was the Interbelt Master Plan.
Oh, okay, that's right, okay.
So most of that
Forgive
was the
me.
pass-through of the federal dollars.
Okay, gotcha. So 662 went toward planning. Okay, that's cool. One last question here. No, go ahead. Who's ever next?
Go ahead,
Just
Councilman.
got a quick question. You brought up the smoke shop. Can we get that information to council? Of those that have been approved, those that are pending, and those that have not applied? And I guess the one question I have, and it's not really a budget question, those that have not applied for it, how long do we have to wait for them? Did we give them a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month time to apply, or
Your
it's
question's
just
on smoke.
open-ended because they'll be open forever?
No, it's not open.
I didn't think
right?
so.
So we have letters that are ready to go out with the fines for not registering. There was the state initiated a ban on THC products.
Right.
Right? And then there was a ballot drive to try and challenge that failed. And it just announced that it failed yesterday. So with that, the ban will take effect this weekend. And we anticipate a lot of these are just going to fold up. And so
Good to know.
kind of want to just see what the fallout of that is over the next month before we, right? So
So that's
that's,
the kratom, the THC.
it's a lot of that
a lot
stuff.
of that
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, so this, it's going to
Delta
change, it's
8,
going to
stuff
change
like
the
that.
business
Good,
model
good.
quite a bit, right?
But I'm
And so,
Because I'm still getting my head bit off. People think I'm lying about the one in the valley that popped up when when we had the moratorium. But
I can talk about that one after too.
we'll talk after.
Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. On page 35, you mentioned the zoning enforcement's uptick there. I know you said you're going to look into those reasons, and I know that getting folks engaged in terms of understanding why the violations are occurring. So if we can perhaps consider maybe a breakdown of the wards, whenever you do the breakdown, to figure out the uptick in those. And just so maybe we can look at doing some education in that area, figuring out why that is. Thank you.
Sure. And I will say, too, that we don't start with a fine, right? We start with a, we call it a soft letter. It's
progressive.
Right? So and then if there's issues, people that maybe didn't understand they weren't supposed to put the fence up there, or, it could be a small thing, or maybe not a small thing, but at least we always start with that effort to just engage, like, hey, you did this thing, and it violates the zoning code, we need to talk.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, Kyle. And next up, we're going to have, I believe Human Resources, correct?
Yes, so up next, we have both We have both Human Resources and Labor Relations. Frank Williams, our Director of Labor Relations, will go first.
Okay.
For his budget numbers, they are included with HR's budget numbers on page 4, so that's the staffing chart that also shows Mr. Williams. And then for his goals and objectives, there's a one-pager that's actually right after HR's, which begins on page 36. Labor Relations is on page 38.
38, you said?
38 is Labor Relations. Mr. Williams, welcome.
Did I do that right?
Right.
Good afternoon, Madam President and cabinet members. Thank you again for having me here. This is always pretty impressive, all the information that you all get to listen through and digest. It's always impressive. The Department of Labor Relations continues to serve as a representative of the Mayor's Office in labor discussions. Labor Relations works closely with the department and division heads to ensure compliance both from the administrative side and the labor side. Labor Relations conducts disciplinary and grievance hearings. The department's main function is to issue disciplines, negotiate labor contracts, and resolve employee grievances. Labor Relations works closely with our HR department and our law department to assist with policymaking, taking corrective actions, and responses to grievances and contract negotiation preparations. In 2025, we negotiated and finally arrived with collective bargaining agreements with the police, fire, and CSPA unions. We're currently in contract negotiations with Local 1360 and hope to have an agreement relatively soon. Along with contract negotiations, Labor Relations was in daily contact with all the unions and management addressing any issues that may have arisen. Labor Relations has reached out to various other labor groups in our area to open up those lines of communication and to build better relationships with outside union laborers outside the city. Labor Relations worked with HR and Law Department to move our prehistoric filing system to a more modernized computer filing system where where all HR, the Law Department, and Labor Relations can share information easier and more efficiently. We're still in the final stages of completing that task, but hopefully should have that done here in the next few months. My goals for each year are to continue to strengthen labor negotiations and union relationships. I hope to streamline the disciplinary review process and strengthen policies for handling workplace discipline. I plan to work with the department heads to support and address labor challenges. It's important to continue to maintain that open dialogue and sharing of the information between all the unions and our administration. And I'm short, sweet, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Williams? Look at that. Did such a
I
fine
said it
job.
all. Said it all.
Said it all.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
all.
time. All right.
Okay, so now we'll bring up Director of Human Relations, Montrella Jackson. Again, the numbers begin on page 4, and the goals and objectives document, page 36. And Deputy Director La Sharita Fellows. Sorry.
Thank you. Good evening, Council President Somerville, Chair Lombardo, Vice Chair Mobian, and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. I am Montrella Jackson, Director of Human Resources for the City of Akron, and I would like to introduce our HR team that's here with us today. So first of all, to my left, I have our Deputy Director, La Sharita Fellows. And in the audience here, we have, looks like Ryan Glazewski is here, who is our Leadership Development and Training Administrator. We have Debbie Vestpoint, who is our Benefits Assistant Director, and Amy Mills is our Leave and Workers' Comp Supervisor. And I think, did I miss anyone? Where's Amanda? And Amanda is our Executive Assistant for the Human Resources Department. Thank you for this opportunity to present our 2026 budget proposal, our accomplishments and overall impact from 2025. I did want to queue up, we did have a video, I don't know if we have time to share it, to just start off like a huge accomplishment. We partnered with Work for America through the efforts of Mayor Malik, and we were the first in Ohio and then one of 3 cities across the entire nation to work on the value proposition for employees, recruiting them here to the city. So this video that will show, some of you will recognize the team members that work here for the city, but it's about 2 to 3 minutes.
That legacy lives. Akron is a city built by makers and doers, rewriting what progress looks like. Today, that legacy lives on in the employees who keep the city moving. They show up with collaboration, heart, and a commitment to serving their neighbors, strengthening the diverse and tight-knit community they call home. In Akron, reinvention isn't just history, it's a mindset, and every job plays a part in shaping the city's future.
We're in the Rust Belt. We're a legacy industrial city. We were the rubber capital of the world. Now we are reinventing ourselves to become the sustainable polymer capital of the world. And it's so exciting to be in the forefront of where those discoveries are happening.
We've got more than 40 cultures in Akron, more than 40 or 50 languages spoken within our population. So the heart of our city, it is our people.
Walking down the streets here, people are going to stop to say hi. They're going to say hello. They're going to want to tell you a joke. They may even want to share their bad day with you, but at the same time, you can turn around and make a comment to them and make their day possibly a little bit brighter.
This job is fulfilling for me because it gives me the opportunity to represent our department, but also to be a face that can connect with the community on difficult issues, to be able to speak to people and encourage them, to let them know that we're working towards creating a better Akron.
We have to go out there, get up early, go and plow the streets, salt the streets so the people can get up and get to work, get the kids off to school, people catching the bus. I like the fact when we go to a street, it's messed up. And then when we finish, it's beautiful.
One thing I love about this job is just the ability to meet people every day. We meet people at their best, we meet people at their worst, but the thing is just being able to have a positive impact on people in their darkest moments, in times where they're going through something that they're going to reflect on and remember for the rest of their lives. I just like being able to play a small role in making their day better.
I get to work with amazing public servants who every day they wake up trying to make the city a better place. City government isn't always glamorous, it isn't always easy, but it can be incredibly fulfilling work. And so being able to better tell our story and better explain to folks what the benefit is of public service, especially public service at a city or municipal level, I think is really important in today's day and age.
Thank you. So this will become part of our recruitment tool. We'll add it to our website. We'll use it to recruit people to the city of Akron. But after watching that, who wouldn't want to work for Akron, right? So in terms of our additional accomplishments, so we have been working on digital file structure for employee records for our 12,000 employee files. The plan, I believe, is for that to become effective this year in April. We also have expanded our communications with digital signage to improve communications to the team for benefits and job postings, training, and resources. So as of now, that digital signage is housed here in the municipal building, but the plan is to expand it to our other buildings throughout the city. I believe Public Works is next out at Triplet, that they're adding signage, electronic signage. Also, we had our first citywide employee recognition picnic with over 500 participants, including 150 honorees. And many of you here today were volunteers. I recall seeing Councilman Hanna and Councilmember Davis at that event. So it was in September of last year. So it was well received. We've also expanded some of the other activities, such as Bring Your Child to Work Day and other activities to increase employee morale and engagement across the city. In our employment and recruiting area, we administered 203 civil service exams, we hired 366 new employees, and we processed 5,800 applications. We developed a new staff orientation in 2025 in person where new hires, as they come in, we have more of a class concept where if, say, we have 10 to 20 new hires, they're meeting at the same time, they're building those connections and helping with engagement of the new team. We also participated in 67 recruitment locations. And then from the benefits department or division, we enrolled 1,823 employees in our benefits package in 2025. We had 64 retirements, and I don't know if everyone knows the number of retirees we have across the city, but we have 2,700 retirees that we administer services for through not only HR, but the other support teams at the city. And in addition to that, that number increases to 5,000 when you look at their spouses and their other dependents. So there were a couple other things. We added a new website page for the retirees. I know I worked with some of the council members, getting questions in from the retirees. So we have expanded that, and then also a benefits phone directory, and we have a Wellness Wednesday newsletter. So the other part of our accomplishments, I'll ask our deputy director to share those with you.
Good afternoon. So from an employee relations standpoint, we were able to establish probationary review check-ins, and this was to improve retention as well as coaching opportunities for our management and supervisors. We facilitated policy committee meetings that included management. That was in an effort to foster collaboration, and it has earned some positive feedback. We have also created a centralized email where management can send any issues or training-related needs to HR, and we can provide coaching and counseling from that perspective as well. From the training and workforce development, we delivered 16 instructor-led classes across 68 sessions, reaching 996 attendees, as well as completed delivery of all 7 supervisory development series. We also managed the Stark State College Partnership, resulting in 160 enrollments, 1,085 credit hours, 11 associate degrees, and 16 certifications earned. We were able to generate savings of $147,000 for the city by utilizing the Ohio Technology Credit Program courses. And we also, our training and workforce development team led the continuity of operations plan training for 20 Tier 1 city organizations. And then we also enhanced our employee orientation by adding an employee expectation section to that so that they can be aware of what's expected of them coming into their new roles. From a leave and compliance perspective, we have 65 employees that participated in paid parental leave. We managed 161 workers' comp claims and expanded the light duty program by adding an on-site physical therapy for police, fire, and public works, which reduces the loss of work days. From safety compliance, we established a municipal building emergency preparedness team, as well as trained the floor coordinators. We drafted and successfully completed an emergency guide that will be distributed to those floor coordinators to use it for emergency issues that arise. We also implemented and delivered a new safety training program with the distribution of PPE for leaf season and for seasonal employees. We conducted Stop the Bleeding training for public works and traffic engineering teams and distributed emergency kits to enhance readiness. And then we also upgraded and implemented the AED equipment program across city locations, which includes community centers, and that way we ensure compliance with new legal mandates.
So at this point, I will share our goals for 2026, which align with our strategic priorities for our department and the city. There is likely a summary of those goals in your packets. The first is we're reviewing our recruitment and our civil service hiring process. I'm proud to share that we have been given a preference as a Spotlight City to apply for the Work for America. They have an 8-week task force that they're putting together, and that will assist us with reviewing and streamlining our hiring civil service process. The second goal would be so we have HR policies and procedures, but we'd like to have a comprehensive employee handbook which contains not only the policies and procedures, but there are some other additional requirements and policies that are located in other places. So our goal for this year is to create that centralized handbook and then update any other policies and procedures. And this will help with training staff and documentation so that staff know the expectations and what they're accountable for and what they're going to be held to as employees. The third is our third goal is to leverage technology for efficiency, and so you heard a little bit about this earlier in the week. So the learning management system we've expanded, and then also we're looking at merging our recruitment system into one system. And then finally, we'll continue to work on electronic employee records. And then the fourth is to continue employee engagement and expand the wellness program. This, of course, will help with morale and retention and reduce healthcare costs. So this concludes our overview. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the group.
Thank you. Councilwoman Amobian.
Well, I don't know what line item I'll find all those initiatives, but I mean, they sound great. I mean, if you're talking about retaining staff and exposing people to new ways of learning, the Start Tech numbers are fantastic. And you have people getting their degrees. Are there children going as well? Or just, these are all employees?
The numbers there are employee numbers. Excuse me, can you come to a microphone? Those online won't be able to hear you. Thank you.
The numbers that were given were employee numbers. But I can get council numbers that are for qualified dependents and children as well. We have quite a few children of employees who are attending Stark State right now.
That's a fantastic benefit. Thank you very much. Now, where will we find, are we spending any money on those the class work, is that free?
So there's a partnership where I believe there was a contract where in exchange for
Several years back, we entered into a lease agreement as part of the construction and exchange. Instead of receiving revenues, we negotiated that we would be getting these classes effectively for free.
Yeah, I remember that, but we don't spend, that's fantastic. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll hear more about it later because I want to hear more about that. Thanks.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time this afternoon. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Councilwoman Tina Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had a quick question. I noticed that there's an addition of one net employee in the department for 2026 over the 2025 budget. That seems to be a recruitment and retention specialist. Can you tell me more about that?
So it's really not a new employee. It was actually an employee that previously was split between police and fire and has been just placed under HR, but it's really not a new employee.
Got it. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we'll have our law department.
So up next, as you mentioned, is the Department of Law, led by the Director, Brian Angeloni. In this case, and only this case, on both the page numbers for both books is 39.
Wow, lucky 39. Those are fancy.
They're so cheap.
Good afternoon, Mr. Angeloni.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, council leadership, members of council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon with respect to the law department's operating budget proposed for 2026. I don't have to tell you all, but as you know, council's role in overseeing spending is its primary charter duty and obligation, and it's critically important. And I welcome the chance to address any questions or concerns that you all have today. So as a starting point, I wanted to impart on you all three key values that drive the law department every day. One, it's risk management. Two, it's protecting Akron taxpayers. And three, it's responsible and ethical stewardship of public resources. Every day in the city, a small band of 15 to 20 attorneys service the legal needs of the entirety of this approximately 2,000 employee municipal corporation. That includes not only meeting daily operational needs, but it's also driving strategic larger term projects, doing major litigation, major projects, and literally, and I mean this quite literally, prosecuting tens of thousands of cases a year for municipal criminal actions. So to say what this department is able to accomplish with the resources it has is impressive would be a drastic understatement. It really doesn't do it justice. What these folks do annually, daily, it defies logic. And I am grateful and humbled to be a part of that and to work alongside of the fine people of the law department. So I appreciate that opportunity. So undoubtedly every year, come budget season, there are questions raised about budget necessary for outside legal counsel spend. So I figured that I would just go ahead and address that topic head on, give you guys a little heads up there.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Anticipation, it's part of what we do, so it's good. So first, the law department's default approach is always to handle matters internally whenever we can, whenever it's practical to do so. Our attorneys provide a wide variety of services every day. We advise city departments, we draft, research, review contracts, we do legislation, handle labor and employment, disciplinary matters. We defend the city in litigation. We do criminal appeals. You name it, we literally do it. It is a wide variety, and it's very quick-paced and exciting. But we work hard to manage those responsibilities efficiently with the staff and resources that we have. But inevitably, from time to time, we're involved in matters that require either highly specialized expertise, or we run into cases where there's just an unusual large commitment of resources, time, personnel, things like that, or some combination of the two. Frequently, it's both, right? So in complex matters or litigation, we find ourselves where it's not just the subject matter that's very, very niche, but also the level of time that we would need to expend. We just don't physically have the bodies to do it. And in that instance, retaining outside counsel is not a matter of convenience. It's a matter of responsible risk management, back to those core values. Really, it wouldn't be fiscally responsible or even feasible for us to maintain sort of the subject matter experts that we would need on staff to be able to deal with the broad swath of different complexities that come at the city. So really, retaining outside counsel gives us the ability to have targeted temporary expertise and resources, and it really is the responsible fiscal thing to do. Otherwise, we would have not only potentially adverse judgments and things like that, but our daily activities and what we need to do to keep the city up and running would come to a screeching halt, which we can't do, right? So it's also important, I guess, to keep in mind that the cost of outside legal representation is often very visible, but it really is what is not seen that is the most significant. And perhaps as we'll get into some more detail with the Finance Department, you'll see, but for example, in the last 3 years alone, the Law Department has been able to reduce the dollar amounts claimed against the city by 92.5%. So I just want that to soak in for a second. So that means that 92.5% of all monetary claims made against the city in the last 3 years have resulted in zero recovery. So we have successfully defended the city to the tune of 92.5% of those claims. Again, goes back to those core values: risk management, protecting taxpayers, fiscal and stewardship of public dollars. So the cost of legal representation, both internal with the Law Department and external with outside counsel, visible in the budget, obviously, but again, the larger costs that competent legal representation can help us avoid, large judgments, settlements, adverse rulings, those things are often invisible. And it's really those invisible things that I'd like to draw your attention to because they don't get talked about enough, right? So it's those large adverse rulings that we don't have that is just sort of indicative of the level of service that the Law Department is providing to the city. And it is our responsibility to prevent those outcomes wherever we can. So with that, I look forward to answering any of your questions and look forward to continuing to work with you all to ensure the Law Department is budgeted and funded as appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Angeloni. Very impressive, the 92% statistic resulting in, we're defending the city. Very good.
So, Councilman, if I may, so another, just throwing out statistics, I mean,
Sure.
we track some of this, obviously, for our metrics, but, I mentioned we have between 15 and 20 attorneys. We currently have 9 prosecutors. And often, we don't, usually the law director is usually on the civil side of things, civil attorneys, not criminal in nature, but our prosecutors, in 2025 alone, they dealt with over 27,000, almost 28,000 cases. And that includes misdemeanors, domestic violence, felony court arraignments, which get bound over into common pleas court, and then traffic court's a lot of that as well. But even setting aside the high volume of traffic court, if you actually look at those numbers, that's 3,109 plus cases per year per attorney, which if you break that down, that is at 9 cases a day per attorney. That's an unbelievable statistic. And you're not talking about, this isn't Suits. We don't gear up and get a case in day 1 and try it on day 3. I mean, this is, real life litigation, facts. You have to subpoena witnesses, talk to them, present evidence, research the law, understand it, brief it. It's just unbelievably impressive. So, in any event, sorry, I digress, but
great.
just incredibly proud of the department.
I'm all about the numbers. Question. So when it comes to certain ordinances we have on the books and the fines that are associated with that, and is that driven by that particular department, like I'll pick on neighborhood assistance or, the nuisance. When there needs to be a fine, does that travel through the law office first to make sure that we have our, T's crossed and I's dotted and all that?
Sure. So if it is a codified ordinance change, it would flow through law. So we
Not
would
a change, just something that
exists.
someone should be fined for.
Right, sure. But that typically gets codified in the ordinances so that somebody's on notice that, hey, if I do this, that, or the other, then first fine is X, next one's Y, then it's Z, usually progressive, right? So I'll say this, there's some leeway, some discretion in setting those amounts, but there are certain amounts that are important. For example, if we do anything in excess of $1,000, typically that's associated with some type of felony under the state statutes. So we would try and keep a misdemeanor case underneath that $1,000 threshold, right? But there is some discretion in the levels of dollar amounts.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is if someone should be fined for whatever, trash on their lawn, does that authority come from that particular department, like the nuisance, or do they have to check with your department first to send out the letter or whatever the case is?
Right.
How does that work?
So how it works now is either most likely there would be an ordinance on the books that would specify that, right?
Yeah.
And so they would be vested, that department would be vested with that standing authority to issue those, typically we call them notices of violation. So those NOVs would go out and they'd outline the fines.
Okay.
But those departments would operate sort of in a vacuum. Once it's on the books in the law, they would be within their right to go ahead and issue those. That wouldn't come from us
That
necessarily.
answers the question. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Amobian.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the specialized legal assistance you need, that would be under service contract? Would that be included there? So when we look at the numbers over the last 2-3 years, I would imagine that this large chunk in '24, and that was budgeted in '25, had to do with some of these major lawsuits regarding, Jalen Walker case, something like that. Now, some of that will roll over to the next year, and it's what you spend that year on the case. That doesn't mean that the case is finalized.
That is correct.
So you budgeted over $1 million in '25, but you've only spent so far $249,000.
Okay.
That's correct, okay. So, and my question has to do more with, do we separate out, not the lawsuits, well, I guess everything could end up in a lawsuit. You separate out the civil from the criminal stuff?
Yeah, so good question. I would say this. So the outside spend that you see, I would say none of that. I would be shocked to know that there was any contract that we would have that would deal with our criminal side. Our prosecutors are prosecuting on behalf of the state, in this case, the city of Akron, and they're handling those matters. This is civil litigation.
Most of this?
All of it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. But I see that you're projecting an increase in '26. Well, I guess you started out with a higher budget in '25 as well. So, anyway, and my second question has to do, and then this is for you to answer for me. I don't know if how we do the union negotiation and all that stuff, if it's part of the charter or what, because as legislators, I know we're not involved in negotiating anything, but because we have to have some input when it comes to paying for things, there is nothing within that allows the law department to address it with counsel before it goes to arbitration and all those things, just to give us a heads up on what's on the table. I've never quite understood the process of how we negotiate because we don't find out much of anything until the end. And I know the administration is mostly involved in that, and that's their realm, but because we do have a role when it comes to the financial side, I've never understood why we don't get.
Sure, no, and your point is well taken. We agree that council has a very important oversight role in funding. Absolutely, that is its real purview, right, is funding. And we respect that, and when we can, we certainly come to you all and apprise you of what we can and can't do. Now, the practical reality is that, especially in civil litigation, we need to be nimble and we need to be able to move quickly and do things like that. So we do pre-plan for budgeting and those types of items. Now, in the labor realm, we're limited in what we can and can't do because of state law. So 4117 is the statute that governs that. And basically it tells us that all collective bargaining activities are confidential. And, you know, obviously at some point we come to you all with that contract that we said we're either recommending that you approve or we recommend that you deny, you know, in closed session. And it's done in closed session for that very reason, that it is confidential.
And confidential means that we're excluded.
But as far as arbitrations and things like that, that would not be something that we would bring to your attention. It wouldn't even rise to that level, really.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Mr. Fusco?
Thank you. I just want to thank you and your predecessors and all that has worked in the law department. I know that I've spent sometimes weekends, sometimes evenings, talking to lawyers about legislation, about whatever it is, over the years, and appreciate all the effort that does. And there is. You guys are small but mighty. But, you know, previewing and looking over all this, nothing really seems to be out of line, other than one thing that is kind of startling to me is what I see on page 40 in the domestic violence cases. This is disturbing. In 23, there's 591. In 2024, there's 862. And then 2025, there's 908. It's not quite, but it almost looks as if there's a doubling. Obviously not quite, but that's significant and scary and startling, and what the hell's going on?
Yeah, no, and it is. It's a startling trend, and you know, again, I can only speak to it from my vantage point, and our prosecutors and the folks who work with them see a lot of, you know, again, not taking anything away from the victims, but also even our staff internally. They deal with a lot of really hard situations, and you see that, you know, emotionally, physically. I mean, it takes a toll on people. So one of our prosecutors, Jess Connell, a wonderful prosecutor, and she manages our DV caseload by herself. It is incredible, and so just an amazing job out of her. But again, the trend is, you're right, the uptick is, you know, 300 cases in 2 years. It's
significant, but it's something, I don't know, just to look at, consider.
Okay, yep. Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. I want to go back a little bit and just thank Ms. Montrella for a phenomenal presentation. The video was really nice. I really like the portion about the on-site physical therapy. When I get stressed out down here a little bit, I could probably use that. Brian, I think what you guys are doing is amazing. Thank you for taking the time to pick up the phone and answer a few of the calls. What you do is admirable. I appreciate you. I would like to talk a little bit about the, I know you mentioned 92-point-something%, the other 7% of those cases that could possibly affect our budget. If you could speak to that and what's the plan, and pretty much the origin on how you plan to attack that, to stop that from affecting our budget.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So I will say this, from civil litigation standpoint, there's only so many things that we can do to prevent, right? We can advise about policies that are in place that we believe could be improved or things of that nature. But in general, our realm is to deal with problems once they've been initiated, right? We don't necessarily know every facet of every detail of every department that goes on a daily basis. So a lot of it is reactive. And when we get into that litigation, we learn facts, we understand more deeply about things, we talk to witnesses, we talk to employees, we can understand those things. So at that point, then we can help remedy the wrong, if there is a wrong to remedy, if you will. That's not always the case. The city gets sued many times for various reasons that aren't really legitimate. A lot of the cases that get brought up against us, in my humble view, are frivolous. And so we will defend those, and we will protect the general fund to the best of our ability on that. But again, in terms of settlement, we look at any number of factors in settling cases. Obviously, again, I go back to those core values, risk mitigation being number one. And in any given case, it really is fact-specific. But we look at the issues, potential exposure. Some cases are more potentially costly than others. So for example, your 42 USC 1983 actions, right? Those carry with them the possibility that the city could get hit with attorney's fees at the end for opposing counsel. So plaintiff's counsel could, at the end of the case, if they win, even if they win $1 in damages, even if their claims only result in $1, they could have $500,000 in attorney's fees that the city has to pay out. So that's a factor that we're thinking about, that we're considering when we're deciding our litigation strategy and how we settle and resolve cases. So that is to say, very complicated, very fact-specific, and very case-specific as to how we resolve those cases.
Okay, thank you. In those cases, so how do you, maybe I missed the answer, but in terms of like budgeting for something like that?
Budgeting for an adverse judgment? Or?
Correct, the adverse judgment. So one of the things that we were discussing was insurance for the city, for when they have such, lawsuits, individuals passing away from gunshots of that nature. So in terms of budgeting, how do you budget for that, or have you considered budgeting for city insurance so that's not such a big hit for taxpayers or our bottom line?
Well, I can tell you that the city, as far as my knowledge and certainly my tenure here, the city has always been self-insured. We have, over the last couple of years, been engaged with we have an insurance consultant who we've been talking to for a number of years about the possibility of being insured through some other policies. That is very costly, especially when you're talking about sort of the types of cases you're talking about. So I don't have any definitive answers on that. But to the question about how do you budget for a catastrophic event, you don't. We try and be, prophylactic in our approach. We try and advise to the best of our ability. We stay abreast of legal trends. We apprise various departments, including our police and fire, about changes in the law, things that they need to be aware of. Part of what our prosecutors do is they provide police legal advice to the police department and a number of other various police departments. Think about all of our hospital systems, our townships and things in the area. Our prosecutors are providing legal advice to those law enforcement agencies as well as APD. So the best, I guess, defense is, staying abreast of trends. I mean, that's the best that I can tell you, is we try and stay on top of changes to the law and best practices and advise accordingly.
Thank you. The last question, thank you, Chair. The last question, rise to that level. So one of the things you mentioned, I think, as my colleague, Ms. Amobi, had mentioned, was the contract and being able to participate or be a part of that. Understanding how important, like a lot of folks in the community are interested in seeking something of that nature, how do we budget for that? I remember during our last contract negotiation conversation, I guess we were trying to figure out who represented the city and how that conversation was going. And I don't know if we budgeted for a top tier person to work in that space. I remember a conversation was like we needed to hire someone in that space. So how does that whole process work?
I guess I apologize. Maybe if I could have you just rephrase that slightly. I'm not entirely certain what your question is.
During the contract negotiations, we had someone represent us during that contract negotiation. My question is, do we budget for, is there a certain budget amount, someone to engage in a conversation that or an expert in that space? I think there was another conversation you and I had where an attorney was assigned and we discussed that law firm's specific nature. I'm wondering, as it relates to our contract, do we have a budget to put someone in that space to really have the city's best interests? Let's just say, for instance, one of the questions came about with 15% raise for the fire and police is unsustainable. That's going to be too much. We can't do that. And then we did that. And so I guess having someone to negotiate for us that's a little bit more savvy, who understands that process, is there a budget for that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think what I can say is it is not beyond the realm of possibility that the city could maintain, and talking about that level of expertise, right, and how we staff, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that we could have that level of expertise internally at the city. And over the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years, we have been investing in an interesting way with a local firm that has expertise, high expertise in that field, to help some of our internal folks become more adept, have more expertise in that field. So specifically, we're talking about labor and employment, right? And in that field, so we've invested resources in training up internal people. The reality is, though, it's hard to attract attorneys to the city to do this work. I mean, we at the base, we're public servants, and we're not paid like the private sector. I remember when I started with the city, I took a big pay cut to come from private practice to the city. It was a great pay cut. Ultimately, it's been just the most, enjoyable and worthwhile and awesome, 10 years of my career. But it's really hard to attract those people now. So to answer the question, it's possible that we could have that expertise in-house. We would have to do it homegrown. We currently have at least one attorney. There's actually 2 that I would say are kind of more focused in the employment realm. One is more focused in the labor realm. And we are working to invest in that attorney to get them to a place where they have that expertise we could do in-house. But currently, for our labor negotiations, we have been utilizing an outside firm as sort of that frontline expert. We provide the support. So that was the structure for this last bargaining cycle. We utilized the services of an outside firm, actually 2 separate ones, in the 3 union negotiations. We were basically the supporting attorneys in those instances.
Okay.
In terms of your funding.
One more question. Okay.
In terms of the funding, so in business, did you get the result that you were looking for? And are we going to continue to use that firm, or are we looking to get another firm? Is that something we could consider during a budget? And you and I can have another conversation.
Sure.
So I don't hold everybody
Okay.
up, but that's my question, please.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Angeloni. Thank you for your time. Thanks for everything that the law department does. Got a great team there. All right. You know what? It's been 90 minutes or so. How about a quick 5-minute break before we start the big show with the finance department? Okay. We'll give everybody just a few minutes to come back. I'm sorry. Hi. All right, welcome back. Welcome back for our final act of the budget hearing. And it's the Finance Department, so introduce yourselves. No, anyhow, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Fricker, looking forward to this presentation. So whenever you're ready.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. So
We're on 10.
I'm going to kind of pick up where we actually just left off, from the Law Department presentation, talking a little bit about the course of events last year. And then after, my remarks, Mike is going to go through. He's going to introduce our team, talk about a lot of our goals and accomplishments from last year. But I kind of like to start off just, with some thoughts about, last year and the labor negotiations and what their impact on this budget is. So, I spent a good portion of the year last year focused on the labor negotiations. So we kind of got done with budget in March, and then, obviously we're negotiating with the 3 bargaining units, which was a very, lengthy process, obviously, with both police and fire. We had fact-finding hearings, and actually were scheduled to go to conciliation with police. And I think the only reason that didn't happen is just kind of due to the timing of when the fact-finding report from fire came out, and the fact that that was, there were similar, outcomes from both of those reports. And ultimately, we settled, with both police and fire, and then obviously with CSPA as well. But if you remember, the discussions we had around those fact-finding hearings, we kind of talked on what the impact on the city would be if those levels were, were the levels that we ultimately had to implement in our contract, and that there would be, repercussions from what those amounts were. And I think that's what this budget does reflect that. But one thing I am proud of is, given how late everything went in the year last year, where we didn't really have signed agreements until well late into November and even December, is that our accounting team, Teresa Johnson and her payroll staff, we were able to basically process all of the retro payments for all of the unions in a space of, really about 5 weeks, which was a huge undertaking that we had to go through, to get all those processed. Some of it had to be kind of manually done, but we were able to. There were a few exceptions things that we had to correct, but with over 2,000 employees, to get all of that done in that quick a time frame was really an impressive feat by our accounting staff and our payroll staff.
Are they here?
Yep.
They are here. I see Teresa is here. If she could stand up. So, and that's kind of also continued into this year where we've had to set up, there are some new items, some compensation items in this contract that we did not have before. So we now have differential pay both in our police department and our fire department. So we had to set up those items in our payroll system. One of the things that we didn't talk about with some of the overtime discussions we've had is the fact that there are new compensation elements in these contracts, particularly in fire, that will cost probably about an extra $1 million a year. So the medic differential that we put in place will cost the city approximately $1 million. So, in addition to the wage increases, there are some items that are kind of offsetting some of the reductions we're seeking to do in overtime. I kind of want to echo, some of the comments I made on Tuesday in that the way we got to having such high overtime levels, particularly in the fire department, but also in the police department, and really in all departments. We kind of single in on those, but overtime throughout the city has been higher, and that is purely a function of having, this federal money that we've had over the past 5 years. Were it not for that money, we would not have had overtime that quadrupled, in fire and in some of the other areas, which, didn't go up that much, but we simply wouldn't have that level of overtime. We wouldn't have the staff that we have in place were it not for that federal funding. And now that it's gone, we have to make adjustments for that. As I talked about, the labor agreements that we have in place, that were just put in place, are going to add about $42 million of additional cost onto the city. All at a time when, we did have negative tax growth last year. So, let's talk a little bit about what that means. So last year, we were hoping to collect $117 million of tax in our general fund. We collected $112 million. So that's a $5 million drop from what we budgeted. And then when you think about that negative tax growth, so this year, if we had gotten 2.5% growth both years, we'd be collecting $120 million. This year, with my estimate of 2.5% growth, we hope to collect about $117 million. So all in, there's about a $10 million swing in the income tax that we hope to collect between last year and this year. So all of that, obviously has an impact on, what our budget is for this year. We've tried to do a number of things in order to preserve as much of the IT4 funding to, cover the gap that we have in our general fund. So we've moved a lot of the things that we traditionally fund out of IT4, some of the police gear, fire gear, some of the, like the TASER contracts, things like that. Things that we funded for years out of IT4 have been moved either to the police specialty funds or to our capital improvement fund. All with the goal of freeing up as much IT4 as we can to pay the staffing numbers that we have. Even with doing all of that, we're still going to draw about $10 million of that IT4 this year. So we're really hoping to spread those IT4 dollars out over as long a period of time as we can. So if we didn't have, some of the cuts that we put in place, we would be drawing through that IT4 fund even faster than what is included in this budget. So, again, I know these comments are similar to, what I talked about on Tuesday. But making these changes, Hopefully reducing the overtime, some staff reductions, but even with the staff reductions, we are still hiring classes in police and fire. So we still are hiring 2 classes in police and 1 class in fire this year. I think if some of those overtime reductions weren't in there, I don't know if we'd be able to do that. So, we're trying to balance things out, and we're trying to spread these service levels over, not just for this year, but for a longer period of time. So that we have, kind of a gradual reduction in, the amount of staff we have. And as we've talked about, we think that, we could still maintain these service levels just if we, structure things a little bit differently. So that is what we're seeking to do. So what we want is more of a gradual, reduction in cost than having to do a very abrupt reduction in cost, next year or in 2028, because we've drawn through, all of the reserves that we have in IT4, and then start drawing into reserves in the general fund. Now, I'll tell you that the general fund, while we have this $30 million reserve, it's really only a 46-day reserve. And I will tell you that it is smaller than what a lot of our larger peer cities have. And part of that is a function of our tax structure. We have a 2.5% tax like most of the other large Ohio cities, but a quarter percent of our tax is dedicated towards the schools. So we're operating at a 0.25% less than Cleveland and Columbus and Dayton and Toledo. And for us, that's $20 million a year that, would be going into either our capital or operating. That was a decision that the voters of Akron made back in 2003. And, some of the structure of our operating costs are based upon that. The other thing I want to mention is the fact that, the departments that presented today, one of the things that I think some people will say is, well, there's other areas that you can cut. And certainly that's true, and certainly I think there will be reductions, across the board in the city as we go through the next year or two. But the departments that presented today, so talking about HR, finance, law, planning, and economic development, I pulled some numbers on, really over the past 30 years on what these departments, what the staffing levels have been. So in 1995, between all of those departments, we had a full-time staff of 296 people. This budget includes 172 people. So that's 30 years ago. That's a 42% reduction over those 30 years in what those departments have. So we have cut, and a part of that is obviously technology and things, and we've certainly, utilized systems that can increase efficiency, but that's still a drastic reduction. So HR, a 16% reduction in their staff. They were actually as low as 15 people in 2015. That was too much, and we've bumped them back up to about 21 people. Finance, now I'm comparing divisions because there's been divisions that have moved in and out of finance, been added to or taken away. So I'm including the divisions that were common, in 1995 and in today. 1995, finance had 115 people, between the administration, audit and budget, accounting, purchasing, IT, treasury, and tax, between those divisions. Today, we have 70 people. So that's a 39% reduction in those, in the finance department. Law has gone down 11% in that time. And then the big one is planning. In 1995, planning had 119 people between planning and what we now call economic development. Today they have 48. It's 71 people less than what they had 30 years ago. So just to provide a little bit of perspective on, we've really tried to, for the most part, to keep the staffing, in the frontline departments. And certainly services had huge reductions too. So services down, everyone's down, even police and fire are down from where they were. Just not at those large percentages, but there's a point where it's hard to really cut anymore, and I just kind of want to make that point that a lot of what we call the back office divisions, the internal service divisions, have really seen large cuts over the past 30 years. With that said, I'd really like to, I want to thank the entire finance department. And Mike is going to go through a lot of what they accomplish. But in particular, I'd like to really thank Mike Wheeler for a lot of what he has taken on this year. So Mike has really spearheaded a lot of initiatives within the finance department. He is running, we have a very complex meter replacement project that we've been working on for a number of years. Mike is essentially leading that. I can tell you just from listening, for those that don't know, Mike and I actually share Diane Miller Dawson's old office together. So we're both in there. So obviously I'm privy to, a lot of these phone calls. And, so Mike has been single-handedly running that AMI meter project, which is a very complex project. And I think they really have that in a good place right now. He's also been responsible for all of the ARPA management, which is a huge endeavor. We are coming to the end of that. And then Chris mentioned yesterday, a lot of reforms that we're doing, one of which is our change order process. Mike has been instrumental in, working with that process. They had a special thing where they went to Harvard and took part in a workshop to help kind of flush out some of the items that we'll be looking at to change that process. So we're very much looking forward to that process this year. And then I also want to thank Tina Vick. Tina, please stand up. So Tina has really taken on a new role. Yes, everyone. Tina's taken on a very new role in the finance department. Tina was our executive assistant for the finance department, but really, through the implementation of Workday, took a huge role in the implementation of Workday, in the configuration of a lot of what we're doing in Workday, training our employees, developing training aids and job aids to show people how to do things. Basically, we've created a role for her where she's going to continue doing that. So she is now a finance project coordinator and is really kind of the go-to person for Workday. All the employees that need to know how to do something, they go to her, and she's always able to get them trained and give them the information they need in order to do what they need to do. So I just want to call out, her tremendous work in that area. So with that, I'm going to have Mike kind of go through the goals and objectives of the finance department.
So thank you. On a bit of a housekeeping note, finance budget book numbers begin on page 10, and the goals and objectives on page 41 of that document. First and foremost, to echo what Steve was saying, this doesn't happen without our team. All the day-to-day actions of the finance department, we are a back office, but we're the backbone to core city services. So I'd like to take a second and really introduce the wonderful staff that we have today present in the pews. These people are what make our department work and the city work through thankless hours and all the different job types that they do. I'm going to kind of go just through alphabetical order of the department, but please stand up when I mention you. Our accounting division and payroll is led by Teresa Johnson. We'll skip audit and budget and come back in a second, but we'll go through IT and the information technology division, which is head by Darren Rozenek. I'm sure everyone knows you. But with him today, he has Brandon Mickle, the applications manager, Bill Fatica, the help desk manager, and Fred Tilley, the communications supervisor. For our purchasing division, it is led by Kim Hansen, who is over here in the red. And then in the back, we have our income tax division, led by Leah Kimmel as the tax commissioner, and Heather Monter as the tax deputy commissioner. On a somewhat different note, oh, not yet. For Treasury, we have Tony White over here in the gray. He is our city treasurer. And on somewhat of a different note, our UBO office is in the middle of a transition. Our utilities office manager, Brian Riemann, retired at the end of February. Today, we have some of the new leadership team and one employee who is also retiring at the end of this month. Our utilities office administrator, Brian Linder, will be retiring March 31st, and I would like to take a second to thank him for his 30 years of service. We also have Veronica Haslam, one of our utilities office supervisors, and Douglas Hirschenroder, our utilities office accounting supervisor. And finally, I want to take a second to really take a step back and thank the audit and budget team once again. As mentioned previous times last week and again this week, a lot of what you're seeing here, the documents, the book, the goals and objectives, without a lot of them being able to herd the departments alongside Steve and myself, this is not possible, these hearings that we have. And with them leading this, Teresa Klein, the audit budget manager, and Lexi Hansen, the supervisor, we are really proud to present the presentation that we have this year. This is a team effort. This is not done in a silo, and I really want to take a second to thank everyone for that. So some high-level goals of the finance department as a whole this year include really taking a step back and embracing some of the modules that are being embraced in Workday and being deployed. Our accounting division, for example, will be looking to implement a contract module and streamline the contract process that is in place between the city's Department of Law and us here in finance. We are also looking at streamlining some of the payroll functionality and to reduce the number of manual entries that may be needed, much like Steve said during negotiations that ended in December. Our information technology division is scaling at an incredible rate. We are now implementing modern artificial intelligence tools in Microsoft Teams through Copilot Chat and Workday. The modules that I just mentioned for law and finance, this contracting module is somewhat powered by AI to design formatted contracts that can be deployed between the divisions quicker and hopefully just eradicating some of the manual work in the future. In addition to the work that IT does, they also supervise the communications division. The communications division continues to reinforce the critical public safety infrastructure throughout the safety forces. This also includes the radio deployment that this council authorized the purchase of the radios earlier this year. On a more public-facing note, over the past couple of years, and really under the leadership of Kim Hansen, we are starting to transition our purchasing division from a legacy procurement-based, enter a PO, it gets issued, to more of a strategic sourcing, more RFP-based kind of role. We want to engage the vendors on a local basis more often and quickly. But we also want to look at how we can strategically use RFPs for nationwide initiatives, such as the rental registration program that we've talked about the other day. And finally, I'm excited to announce that with our utilities business office, we will be launching SPRI CIS, the customer information system that we've talked about for a couple of years, later this year. And this will improve productivity for the office, streamline operations for the CSRs, and deliver a more efficient experience, not only internally, but for the water and sewer utility customers throughout the system. Part of this will be a more modern-facing portal for the customers to log into and have accounts, and they will be able to eventually request their own billing dates. So that way, if something doesn't match up with how they might be structured on a limited payroll, they will be able to adjust it, and more details will come on that in the future. I really want to take a second to talk about some of the metrics that we've had. And we have a whole list of things, and I talked that, we are looking at how we present this information. On the second page of the goals and objectives, we have a lot of activities that occur on a day-to-day basis. I don't think I'm going to go through most of these. These are really just for reference about the amount of activity that these people, what they are doing on a daily basis and how it reflects that. However, one thing I want to highlight is actually at the bottom of the information technology side. What we are really starting to track now, and we want to share with council, is the amount of data that's flowing through our network. And last year in 2025, 1.6 petabytes flowed through our storage systems. And the reason I want to bring that up is that amount of data, what we're talking about by 1.6 is the equivalent of 6,282 physical laptops. With the monthly traffic, the data that's going back and forth through the city, what people browsing the internet or downloading things, is 177 terabytes in 2025, which is actually the equivalent of 250 houses using an average amount of that data. So that is a lot of data that we are monitoring. And I think everyone knows with the current discussions that are out there, storage costs are increasing. So we are cognizant of that, but we really want to show how much data we process on a regular basis. And with that, I want to thank everyone here, Council President, Chair Lombardo, and you, the members of council, for your time and being engaged in this process.
Thank you very much. That's, like I said, being a numbers guy myself, those numbers really, are interesting and tell a big story that there is a lot of work going on around here, and it's well-deserved the accolades and appreciation. I'm going to ask a question or two myself. It relates to, Steve, you were talking about the negative tax growth, from 117 million down to 112 that we collected, and, on and on about a $10 million swing, which, would really, boost our budget. We could do more things maybe, but I guess where I want to go with this is that what are we doing to enhance or improve our tax collections?
Go ahead. Yeah, so that's at the forefront of our thoughts on a regular basis. So there's kind of a twofold approach that we're taking. Last year, we did enroll our tax deputy commissioner, Leah and Heather, into a program that allows them access into the Attorney General's office to directly file cases with them. So that is somewhat going to streamline the process when they become aware of a case that is delinquent, to allow them to issue those kind of collection methods a little bit faster. The second approach is also in our income tax division, and what we really want to do is hire a data analyst. And that data analyst is going to be utilized first to clean up the existing data that we have, but then really start to analyze if there's any patterns out there so we can enhance our own collection practices internally, not only so we're better aware in advance, so that way maybe we can see if there is potential trends, but also back to the Attorney General point, to really stay on top of that process holistically.
So we're using the Attorney General. Do we have a contract with them? Like, how's that set up? It seems like, well, I don't know how much money we have laying on the table. I just heard it's a lot, but.
So the process is actually, we have to physically enroll people, and we have to agree not necessarily on a contractual basis to access the system, but it's more so like a formalized background check that these are 2 employees that work for the city and that they are allowed on the city's behalf to do the collections work.
So did the Attorney General, last year, did they collect 5% more for us or 10%? Like, how much money is left on the table that we could, do we need more than the Attorney General? Do we need, other collection agencies?
So tax is unique in this case because it is income tax, that once we are able to discharge a case and we are sending it down there, that's more so at the discretion of how it flows through that process, and I cannot necessarily answer that. We do receive collections on a regular basis from the Attorney General's office as they close out cases, and then that is then deposited back to us.
Okay. I'll let someone else ask a question. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. You reference, I know that the over $20 million overtime that we have been experiencing in those 2 major departments. I know that the 20 million plus amount of overtime that was mentioned for those, I'm assuming that most of it was for fire and police. And I know it's not sustainable. You kind of referenced that it went up because we had the extra federal dollars, unless I misinterpreted what you said.
That is correct. So basically, the service levels that were provided by that, were only made possible because those dollars were there to supplement the general fund.
Okay.
So we allowed, both of those departments to operate, to utilize that overtime and operate at those higher service levels because we had, we basically received over $70 million between CARES, ARPA, and the staffing grants. It was over $70 million over 5 years.
So prior to that, we were averaging about what in overtime in those departments?
So in the, in the fire department, it was $2 million.
Oh.
It went to $8 million in 2024.
So when the fire chief talks to us about wanting to manage overtime better, and he has a plan of trying to do that, to monitor it, manage it, to do whatever to bring it within reason, it sounds like it will be going back to what it was probably normally.
The service levels will be going back to what they were prior to that $70 million coming into the city. That's my best answer to that.
So people, you get the impression that folks want to start screaming that services won't be available and that kind of thing. And I know he's going to monitor all of that because he talked about it yesterday, the service levels and all of that. But it sounds like prior to getting all these extra dollars, we were already doing whatever we were doing, but we were meeting the needs of the citizens of Akron for the most part.
Correct.
With less money.
I mean, in the case of fire, so as I said, the overtime was $2 million in 2019. The budget before you now has $4 million, so it's double.
Sure.
In a span of 5 years, it's double what we had 5 years ago.
And I would never say that
Instead of
people
quadruple.
don't deserve the extra money if they're working overtime, because that has to weigh heavily on employees when you're working so much extra time.
Certainly.
And I think when he talked about wellness and all the things he wants to take into consideration, it sounds like he's taken a really nice approach to trying to figure out how do we manage this and keep the level of service needs met. So I think we need to give him an opportunity to do that so we can figure out what can we do, because the levels we're at now are not sustainable. Thank you.
This is it's an IT budget question. This is on page 27. So as far as rentals and leases go, from 24 to 25, seemed like, that between what the expenses were and what was budgeted, that doubled. And then, even though there was a budget, $2 million, we spent 2.5. This year, we're going to budget 2.7. So what does that mean as far as
So,
rentals and
so
leases?
that represents, so a little bit of that is just a changing in how things are coding. So one of the things you'll notice is that the line right above that, the service contract. So we kind of have two codes that we charge our software to. Something that was implemented a number of years ago is that what we call software as a service. So something that we don't buy the software, we don't own it, but we pay an annual fee to use it. And that's the way most of our packages are these days. So like Workday and ServiceNow, and they're all what are called software services. So those are coded under rentals and leases. So you'll notice that, so to some degree it is, yes, the stuff is more expensive than it was a couple years ago. Some of it is also just, it has moved down from that service contracts line down to rentals and leases. Now, one of the other things we mentioned, we just had legislation here a couple weeks ago. So we've added some things to Workday, which will save us in some of the other areas. So our HR department software line will go down. We'll still have it for this year, but we'll go down next year. So one of the things we're doing is consolidating our software, into fewer packages, and therefore ultimately we'll save a little bit of money. It's not huge because obviously we're adding modules on, to some of these, but in many cases, that can be done in a kind of a cost-effective way that it's a little bit to add on to our main software package and gets rid of our larger costs that we had that was kind of an independent package.
And those software leases or whatever, they include frequent updates? Well, not frequent, let's hope not, they're not frequent.
So
they include updates, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of single out Workday. So Workday, one of the, so prior to us having Workday, we had what was called Banner, which was an Oracle-based client-server financial package, and then we had PeopleSoft, which was the same thing, client-server-based financial package. Every, 3 years, 4 years, those had to be upgraded, often at significant cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade those. And really, you'd upgrade them and, the new functionality would really be pretty minimal. But it was just, that was kind of the way things worked, is, you had to upgrade these every few years. They would, discontinue support for the older version, and so, and you had to go through this whole process. So the way Workday works, and a lot of them now, is that so Workday updates semi-annually, and that's all factored into your cost. So we never have to pay for an upgrade, that just happens.
Yep.
So that's one of the other things is you kind of have to look at, like, yes, it's more expensive kind of on an annual basis, but then you don't have these, major investments every 3 years to do those upgrades.
Gotcha, yeah. And then on page 24, the equipment and vehicle replacement, and I know we've replaced police and fire and all that, so can you explain the equipment on page 24 between, all the columns there with what was happening in 24
So
versus
this is
budget 25
Yeah.
versus what the budget is?
What this represents is about, I don't know how long it's been, 2 years ago maybe, we set up another fund. And the reason we did that, we set up a fund for equipment replacement. And the reason we did that is because we were ordering a lot of these, the heavy-duty vehicles, like a lot of our big, highway trucks, and really all kinds of equipment. And keep in mind, this was 2 years ago, and we were just kind of coming out of the COVID era. And a lot of these vehicles were taking, several months, 18 months, 24 months, some of even, 3 years. And so, you would order a truck in one particular year, obviously we don't pay for it, we don't pay for it till it comes in. Yeah. And then 3 years later, here comes that truck, and we don't know when it's gonna come in. And so that became kind of a budgetary problem, to have the funds set aside, especially when you've got other uses you're looking to do with that money. So what we did is we set up this fund, and so basically when we want to order a truck, we, say sewer wants to order a truck. We transfer the money from sewer into this fund, and then this fund is sitting there with that money in it. So when that truck comes in, the money is sitting there in order to pay for the truck. So we don't have to re-budget that thing in sewer, not even knowing when it was going to come in.
Okay.
So that's the idea behind this fund. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? I have a couple more, but go ahead. I don't want to.
Thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to piggyback on something you asked earlier, regarding the delinquent tax collection, were we doing that in '25?
Yes, this is something we've always done.
Okay, and do we know how much of the delinquencies were recovered as a result of this program?
Yeah, sure, we have a report from the Attorney General's on the funds that are collected.
Yeah, that would be great, just for us to have an understanding, because I don't think all of us were aware that that was happening, so it's a good education for us. Second question was related to the contracts. Am I understanding correctly, and I may have misheard you, are some of the contracts that were in other cost centers moving into the finance cost center, and that's why it's growing, or just it's growing by nature of the contracts that are already there?
I'm not sure I'm following your question. Which cost center in finance is growing?
Well, you mentioned, I believe the service contracts were growing, correct? Like they were larger this year.
Yeah, because of the service contract, because of the
Are we talking
Workday adding modules and things like that.
Oh, okay, you're talking about the IT contracts.
Are you moving human resources contracts to Workday, and that is moving into this?
No,
center?
yeah, so that particular example, so basically we have, so in the HR budget, they have a package called NeoGov.
Right.
Which basically handles all of our recruiting and some of the onboarding, which we're going to have for one more year. We purchased additional functionality in our Workday module that is going to basically take the place of having that. So that cost in HR next year should go away, yeah.
Got it, thank you.
Councilman Fusco.
I'll try to be real brief here. We're a function, especially we're complaint driven here in the city, and I think that we have not been as aggressive as we could have been or should be in terms of addressing some of those and collecting on some of those, because it's complaints versus I think we used to be more active, going out and looking for things. And I just want to preface everything with that. That's why I bring up and I don't know, it seems as though, and I could be wrong, but the complaints that are filed or calls that go in on the contractor registration program that we have we focused on that at all? Because I think we're leaving money on the table there. What it is that this council passed a law some time ago, ordinance, that contractors, the general has to file with the city and tell us all the subs that are below them, okay, to ensure, and we could go out at any time to ensure that we're getting paid our share of income tax. Because a lot of these projects that are out there, we don't know if we're getting it or not, and you hear rumors and this and that, but I don't know. Like I said, I know we passed that, and whenever I would call the service director's office, whomever, I say, hey, there's a job over there. Are we collected on that or not? I don't know if we're actually actively going out on it.
Right, so what we're doing, and we passed this legislation earlier this year, is we are really in the process of revamping that, because to your point, I think you don't always know what you don't know. And even though it is required in the construction contracts, especially what you're referring to, just because that might be, and I don't want to say that it is, because I do not know that for a fact one way or another. Yeah. What we're doing is implementing this B2G software across the board, not only for enrolling more businesses in the community and especially trying to attract local talent, but also so that way we can get a holistic picture of what that might look like when the contractors are supporting submitting their invoices. Because when they submit those invoices, they should be submitting that information as well.
Mike, I appreciate that, but I think you're talking about public contracts. I'm talking about private. Does it take in private as well? Like a hospital gets, rebuilt or what have you, or added on to, or, all these private projects. That's where I think we're missing.
Right now, if they're not only if they're going through the plans and permits process, which I believe some of those should still be doing that, right?
I hope so.
So I think, again, that's kind of coming back. We're going to deploy the software, and we're going to really just monitor that as a whole.
Yeah, could be, because I've always believed that we're leaving a little bit on the table. So 46-day reserve, what's a day? What's the cost for a day?
I don't know, divide 200 and...
I can pull it up.
Yeah, you guys, you're the finance folks, not me. No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
So that's $4.9 million.
4.9 million. Okay, cool. Thank you. And so is there like a threshold that the bond market looks at? Because you'd mentioned our peer cities.
60 days is considered ideal.
60 is the goal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which we've always said is our goal. One thing I do want to, and I forgot to talk about this during our remarks. So this is our latest bond rating report. So we got this last year. They did affirm so we have an A+ rating, which is, there's AAA, AA, and then we're A+. So it's high, kind of high middle, I suppose.
Do we have that? Did you give us that piece?
I can, yes, sir.
Yeah,
I will certainly send this to everyone. But one of the things I want to kind of remark on is, some of the comments that they made with our rating. And, they kind of mention, they kind of say it two different ways, but management will likely draw down on available reserves to plug the near-term budget hole, and our view in the near term is the city has sufficient flexibility to support operations while officials make the necessary budget adjustments. So that's part of what this budget is. We're making the necessary budget adjustments. However, should the city fail to achieve budgetary balance over the outlook period, resulting in a drawdown on reserves, we could take a negative rating action. And then our outlook was stable. And so there's always there's a grade and an outlook. And so you might have a certain rating, but they say the outlook is negative because they see things, on the horizon. Ours was not. Ours was stable. But they say the stable outlook reflects our view that the city will make the necessary budgetary adjustments to achieve at least balanced operations and avoid significant deterioration of reserves over the outlook period. So, that's the rating agency saying, they expect us to, make the budgetary adjustments to keep us from drawing on reserves. So that's what this budget reflects.
Thank you. Can you give us like a snapshot of, not necessarily 95, but like the last 5 years? Or can you just say off the top of your head, how many days that we had?
So I will tell you that we reached our peak in recent years in 2020. And that was purely a result of the CARES Act funding. So now keep in mind, our fund balance was the same as it is, actually it was slightly less in 2020, but so was our general fund. So that, that $29 million reserve in 2020 was on a, just off the top of my head, $190 million general fund budget. Our general fund budget is $226 million now. So that's the difference. Our operations have grown. We had 14% wage increases for most of our city employees over the past. So all of our costs are going up, and that reserve is, obviously less of a reserve based on the total expenditures that we have.
So the goal to move the bond rating, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The goal to move the bond rating is what's the number of days? Would that be, you would think?
I mean, if we got back to a 60-day reserve, my guess is we would have our bond rating go up.
Thank you.
Mr. Fricker, have we ever dipped into the rainy day fund or the reserve fund?
So I will be clear, we do not have a rainy day fund.
Well, okay.
City of Akron does not have a rainy day fund. No. We have had years where we have drawn on our general fund reserve. Slightly, I will say, one of the things that, I think Mike has this graph up right now. Our general fund reserve was, 10 years ago was $6 million. We did a couple things. So for years, we had a very low general fund reserve. We did the cell tower lease sale, I can't remember which year it was, back in like 2017, I think, something in that era, that brought in really just an additional $5 million. What year did we raise it up to 10? What year is it? 17, yeah, so.
Well, didn't the COVID money, whatever, the federal money,
And-
didn't we put 25 million into the
Yeah,
general
so
reserve?
the primary reason you'll see the peak of that graph that Mike is showing right now was 2020. So that was, we did get to a 60-day reserve at that point. Now, keep in mind what was happening at that point too. Now, that's when our overtime started really going up, was in like 2020, 2021. It really started increasing. So our costs went up drastically too. So even though, if you look at the green bars on that graph, our fund balance has stayed relatively the same. We're at $30 million. We have been. But our costs, that $30 million is a smaller percentage of our total expenditures.
I just really want to emphasize that the driver of what makes up the days cash on hand calculation is your average daily expenditures divided by your cash balance. So as those expenditures increase, it naturally forces the days cash on hand down.
I got you, okay.
When will the 1/4% be returned to the city? When will we stop doing? When will we stop setting aside that 1/4% for the schools and it'll go back to the city? Is that
Yeah, so in 2033. So
Yeah.
when we put the 1/4% tax on for the schools, all of the bonds that we issued for the schools, so it's sunsetted in 2033. So all of the bonds that we issued for that had a final maturity of 2033. So that 1/4% will go away in 2033.
So in 6 years, the city will have more revenue. Okay, thanks.
Last question on page 14, the service contracts, being what we spent in 2025, it's more than doubled. What would that mean? What would that encompass? It's for the citywide administration budget service contract.
So the citywide, so in 2000, are you saying in 2024?
2025, we spent 830,000, and then now we're budgeting 1.8 million.
Yeah. So in this number, and it's kind of a wide variety. Some of it is stuff that is regular to that. So we have our some legal costs. That's about $60,000. We have our indigent burials. That's $100,000. That's always there. The after-school program, $250,000. That's always there. We have an insurance consultant for $100,000. We have our building security, which is $220,000. So that's the Sorrento group that is downstairs. The increases are from a couple things, really. So we have the Youth Success Summit is in for $500,000. This is where we're paying the undue medical debt that we just talked about, that it just went out, that they've retired about $20 million of debt. So that's $170,000 that's in there. And then Project Play, $175,000. $100,000. And then one thing I didn't mention the other day when we were having the discussion with the Citizens Police Oversight Board, so they mentioned that they included the software cost in their budget proposal. So there was $100,000 in this budget, which we put in last year, and then they ended up not buying the software, and that $100,000 is also in this budget. So, those are the primary items that make up that number this year.
Are they going to buy the software this year? Didn't they?
That is my understanding. Yeah.
Didn't we give them a data analyst or half a data analyst or whatever also?
So correct. Yeah.
But they didn't buy the software.
They didn't buy the software.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? We good? Sorry it took so much time, people. Charge it. Pizza. All right, I think that's it. So thank you very much. Mr. Fricker, Mr. Wheeler, thanks everybody from the finance team. All right.
Sure. Yeah. It is on our website. I mean, I will say that it's the AIS. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That's an easy one.